we've got a large enough jury pool, this isn't gonna be an issue.
We're fine with letting her go too, Judge.
All right, so go out there and tell 13 and 26 to get out of here. So those spots will just be blank
It's blank for now? Okay.
in the seats.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read this stipulation? I mean, you're just gonna play this stuff, and obviously there's no objections to it, so I don't know if you want me to.
We're fine however the court would like to handle it, but we would note that we're gonna start the trial with the 911 call.
Okay.
I mean, as long as the stipulation's made part of the record, my take on it is the jury's not going to appreciate
Right.
the significance of it.
Okay.
We'll just
So I won't-
let them play
I won't-
it, and
All right.
they won't know any different.
Anything else?
I don't think so, Judge.
You all set on how this contraption?
Probably
works?
not. I'd say there's a less than 50-50 chance, but, you know, we'll muddle through it.
Okay. All right. Stan's only here today, right?
Yes, yeah, Tony tomorrow.
Okay. Did you call him in? Did you check him in, or did Stan check him in?
We both did, just make sure they were all set and I
All
make
right, so
sure. that-
I'll introduce all three bailiffs for this trial.
Okay, I'll get it for you. No, stay here.
One was number 26, you have a jacket here?
She didn't say anything.
Okay.
I don't know, we'll find out.
She was wearing a coat.
That's what I thought.
Who was trying to get in there, Stan?
That was his,
Is he bringing the drink?
his tag he left in here. Let me see, number 27, sir. He says his mother's dying in Florida.
Jeez.
She's got 48 hours left. 48 hours left.
Also submitting all of our exhibits on.
That's number
flash drive.
27, sir.
We have everything labeled on a status drive.
No
It's-
objection.
Uses hash comparison.
Hey, Lauren.
Lauren, we
if you
don't
just
have an
heard,
objection.
So,
No,
20
if someone's dying, let him go.
I'm dying.
We use these hash comparison values to make sure
Yeah.
we're the same items, we then move them over to a court drive with those hash comparison values to make sure they're the same items. Anything that's admitted goes on a jury
26,
drive, hash
27,
comparison value to make sure it's the
and number
same.
13.
Anything identified stays on the court's drive, and only admitted go on the jury drive. So just so you know, that's how we're doing it.
That's
Hang
easy.
on a minute.
Yeah, 'cause I'll just let it go and keep this. I know.
Steve, did you see anything of significance in the jury questionnaire? I didn't. So I just, yeah, I was kind of starting with a blank slate.
Okay, Stan.
All right, sir.
all rise. This court is now in session. The Honorable John P. O'Donnell is presiding.
Be seated, please. Good morning, everybody. I shouldn't have had you sit. Now I'm gonna make you stand because our clerk of courts, Carl DeFranco, is gonna swear you in for this process. So would you please stand again, raise your right hand and respond? I will.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will truly and fully answer all questions put to you by the court or counsel in this case, and this you do as you shall answer unto God?
All right, now you can be seated. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, good morning, everybody. Want to welcome everybody to the Lake County Courthouse this morning. I commend you for being here on time, and I know there were kind of tough conditions, so I appreciate you guys getting here. I know this is the first opportunity you've had for jury service, and you've watched the Supreme Court video that tells you a little bit about what to expect as a prospective juror or a trial juror, but I want to give you a little bit more of an introduction to jury service at this time. Now, service as a juror is an important civic duty. Trial by jury is one of the most valuable rights that we all possess in the United States, and the preservation of that right is strengthened by you guys showing up here today, so we do appreciate that. Now, I would recognize that each of you are making some sacrifice by being present here today, and I know it represents some inconvenience to each of you, but I also believe that you will recognize that jury service is necessary. The system that we use is a system that lets everyday people decide issues that affect other everyday people. So the sacrifice being made is required to ensure that we continue with this system of justice. Now, some of you may be feeling a bit stressed or nervous at the thought of having to serve as a juror. These are common feelings often expressed by prospective jurors who have never served before. A lot of people don't think they can perform the duties of a juror, or are not capable of performing those duties, but I want to assure everybody that you're more than capable of performing the duties of a juror. It's my hope that by the end of this process, whether you are excused before the trial starts or whether you serve, that it's an enjoyable process. And I can tell you, at the end of jury trials, I always speak to jurors about their experience, and it's almost universal that they enjoyed that service and want to come back. And it's also almost universal that they didn't want to be here, but once they were here, they enjoyed doing it and want to come back. Now, you've been summoned as a prospective juror in a criminal case entitled State of Ohio versus David L. Post, Jr. Mr. Post is the defendant in this case, meaning he has been charged with committing a criminal offense. Specifically, the indictment alleges in count 1 that on or about the 21st day of March 2025 in the township of Madison, Lake County, Ohio, David L. Post Jr. did knowingly cause or attempt to cause physical harm to Devin N. Quiggle by means of a deadly weapon or dangerous ordinance as defined in the revised code, and that being a Ruger LCP Max pistol. There are 2 firearm specifications attached to count 1. And the first one says that the grand jurors further find and specify that David L. Post had a firearm on or about his person or under his control while committing the offense. The second specifications indicate that the grand jurors further find and specify that David L. Post had a firearm on or about his person or under his control while committing the offense and displayed the firearm, brandished the firearm, indicating he possessed the firearm or used the firearm to facilitate the offense. In count 2, Mr. Post is charged that on or about the 21st day of March 2025 in the township of Madison, Lake County, Ohio, David L. Post Jr. did knowingly cause serious physical harm to Devin N. Quiggle. The 2 firearm specifications that I read to you as part of count 1 are also part of count 2. Now, the indictment filed in this case, which sets forth the charges read to you, is not evidence. It is used to inform Mr. Post that he has been charged with these offenses. The fact that it was filed may not be considered for any other purpose. Mr. Post has pled not guilty to these charges. The plea of not guilty is a denial of the charges in the indictment and puts in issue all the essential elements of each offense. The state of Ohio and Mr. Post are entitled to jurors who approach this case with open minds until such time as a verdict is reached. It would be unfair and improper for you to decide this case based only on part of the evidence or without hearing the court's instructions and the arguments of counsel. Do not jump to conclusions on the basis of the first or the last argument or the first or last evidence that is presented to you. In addition, jurors must be free as humanly possible from bias, prejudice, or sympathy, and not influenced by preconceived ideas either as to the facts or to the law. You will receive the facts from the witness stand. Instructions as to the law will be given to you by the court, and it is your sworn duty to accept the instructions and apply these instructions as they are given to you. I want to begin by explaining the procedure by which some of you will be selected to serve as jurors in this case. As I said, each of you are undoubtedly qualified to serve as a juror, but there could be something that could disqualify you in this particular case or under the particular facts and issues presented in this case. So we're going to go through a process whereby I ask you questions and counsel asks you questions. This part of the trial is called voir dire. It's an opportunity for the courts and the attorney to question you in an attempt to learn a little bit more about your background beyond what's contained in your jury questionnaires. And the purpose is to make sure that we have a fair and impartial jury in this case. The questions are not designed to pry into your personal affairs, but to discover if you have any knowledge of this case or any preconceived opinion that you cannot set aside, or if you have some experience in your personal life or your family life that may cause you to favor either party. These questions are necessary to ensure that both parties have a fair jury. I will ask you questions first as a group. If you have a response, raise your hand and I'll call upon you by your juror number. Every time a prospective juror speaks, that juror must be identified by a juror number by either the person asking the question or the person responding to that question. We do this so that the record is clear as to who is talking. After I've asked my questions, the attorneys will be allowed to ask questions as well. Again, these questions are not intended to be offensive or to pry, but to ensure that we have a fair jury in this case. I'm sure you would understand that if a person has personal knowledge of this case or has already made up their mind as to how this should come out, that they would not be able to serve as a juror. That person would be excused for what is called good cause. After you're done being questioned, I'll meet with counsel out of your presence, at which time 13 individuals will be chosen as the trial jurors in this case. One of the 13 will be the alternate. That individual will not be identified until just before deliberations begin. Now, it's very important. I want to stress to you the importance of answering all questions honestly. We need you to be open and honest in your responses. If there's something you don't want to discuss in front of the entire panel, let me know that and we'll discuss that privately. Now, seated closest to the jury box here in front of me, representing the state of Ohio, are Assistant Prosecuting Attorneys Lauren Tuttle and Haley Gold. Would you introduce yourselves and your representative, please?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lauren Tuttle, and this is Haley Gold. We are from the Lake County Prosecutor's Office. The elected prosecutor is Charles Polson. Sitting with us today is Detective Sean McClure from the Madison Township Police Department.
Thank you. And seated at the other table are attorneys Stephen Bradley and Michael Marine. Would you introduce yourselves and your client, please?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Stephen Bradley. This is my law partner, Michael Marine. We're obviously defense attorneys and represent our client, Dave Post. Dave, will you stand up, please?
Yes.
Dave Post.
All right, thank you. Seated over here in the bailiff box is Stan Shadowin. He is going to be the bailiff today. You met Bob Gonzalez also. He's my normal bailiff, but had some foot surgery and shouldn't be up and around too much. So Stan's filling in today. And then tomorrow we'll have Judge Rupel's bailiff sitting in for a couple days. So we got the guest bailiff system like the Tonight Show around here. So it's the bailiff's responsibility to keep you guys together during the course of the trial, to tell you where to go and to make sure you don't have contact with any other individuals. Kathy Miller down here is the court reporter. She's responsible for recording and taking down everything that's being said in court. It's important that the witnesses, the jurors, and the lawyers speak clearly and loudly enough for the court reporter to hear them. Because people have a tendency to nod or shake their head, I would bet within a first couple questions that somebody's gonna shake their head, you'll hear me remind you that you gotta verbalize it so Kathy can get that down. She needs, their primary function is to make a record of everything that's said while we're in court. Now, those who participate in a trial must do so in accordance to established rules. This applies to the witnesses, the lawyers, the judge, and the jurors. The lawyers present the evidence through the questioning of witnesses, which must be done according to the rules. The judge enforces the rules and determines what evidence may be admitted. At times during the trial, a lawyer may make an objection to a question asked by another lawyer or to an answer by a witness. This simply means the lawyer is requesting that I make a decision on a particular rule of law. Do not draw any conclusion from the objections or from my ruling on those objections. These only relate to legal questions that I must determine and should not influence your thinking. As jurors, you will be the sole judges of the facts, the credibility or believability of the witnesses, and the weight to be given to the evidence. Later, the court will furnish the law which you will apply to the facts. It is your sworn duty to accept the law as it is given to you by the court. Once a jury is selected, the procedure for the trial is as follows. First, the state will outline in an opening statement what they expect their evidence will show. The defense may then, but need not, make an opening statement. These opening statements are not evidence. They are a preview of the claims that each party gives you that are designed to help you follow the evidence as it is presented. The state then offers evidence to support its claim. The defendant may then present evidence but is not required to do so. If the defense does offer evidence, then the state may offer rebuttal evidence. The trial concludes with the instructions of law and the arguments of counsel. You would then deliberate on your verdict. A criminal case begins with the filing of an indictment. The indictment informs the defendant he has been charged with an offense. The fact that it was filed may not be considered for any other purpose. The plea of not guilty is a denial of the charge and puts in issue all the essential elements of each offense. The defendant is presumed innocent until his guilt is established beyond a reasonable doubt. The burden of proof is on the state of Ohio to prove the facts necessary for its case beyond a reasonable doubt. The defendant must be acquitted unless the state produces evidence which convinces you of his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt of every essential element of the offense charged in the indictment. Reasonable doubt is present when, after you have carefully considered and compared all the evidence, you cannot say you are firmly convinced of the truth of the charge. Reasonable doubt is a doubt based on reason and common sense. Reasonable doubt is not mere possible doubt because everything relating to human affairs or depending on moral evidence is open to some possible or imaginary doubt. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is proof of such character that an ordinary person would be willing to rely and act upon it in the most important of his or her own affairs. Evidence is all the testimony received from the witnesses, the exhibits admitted during the trial, facts agreed to by counsel, and any facts which the court requires you to accept as true. Evidence may be direct or circumstantial or both. Direct evidence is a testimony given by a witness who has seen or heard the facts to which he or she testifies. It includes exhibits admitted into evidence during the trial. Circumstantial evidence is the proof of facts or circumstances by direct evidence from which you may reasonably infer other related or connected facts which naturally and logically follow according to the common experience of mankind. Direct evidence and circumstantial evidence are of equal weight. The evidence does not include the indictment, the opening statements, or closing arguments of counsel. The opening statements and closing arguments of counsel are designed to assist you. They are not evidence. You are the sole judges of the facts, the credibility of the witnesses, and the weight of the evidence. To weigh the evidence, you must consider the credibility of the witnesses. You may apply the tests of truthfulness which you apply in your daily lives. These tests may include, but are not limited to, the appearance of each witness upon the stand, the reasonableness of the testimony, the opportunity to see, hear, and know the things concerning which they testified, the accuracy of memory, frankness or lack of it, interest and bias, if any, together with all the facts and circumstances that surround the testimony. Applying these tests, you may assign to the testimony of each witness such weight as you deem proper. You are not required to believe the testimony of any witness simply because they were under oath. You may believe or disbelieve all or any part of the testimony of any witness. It is your province to determine what testimony is worthy of belief and what testimony is not worthy of belief. The testimony of a defendant is to be weighed by the same rules that apply to other witnesses, if the defendant takes the stand and testifies. The defendant has the constitutional right to not testify in this trial. If the defendant chooses not to testify, you shall not consider that decision for any purpose. You should not decide any issue of fact merely on the basis of the number of witnesses who testify on each side of such issue. Rather, the final test in judging evidence would be the force and weight of the evidence, regardless of the number of witnesses on each side of an issue. The testimony of one witness believed by you is sufficient to prove any fact. The court instructs you not to converse with the attorneys, parties, or witnesses during the trial, and likewise the participants in the trial must not converse with you, and in fact they are ordered not to talk to you until after the case has concluded. If anyone should attempt to discuss the case with you, report that incident to me or to the bailiff immediately. Do not investigate or attempt to obtain additional information about this case outside of the courtroom. It is improper for any of you to attempt to do so. You are instructed not to read, view, or listen to any report in any media on the subject of this trial. Do not permit anyone to read or comment upon them to you or in your presence. Such reports may be incomplete and inaccurate. You may only consider and decide this case upon the evidence received at the trial. If you acquire any information from an outside source, you must report it. If you realize during the course of the trial you have personal knowledge of any facts in this case, inform the bailiff as soon as possible. Now, as I said at the outset, I'm going to ask you questions first before I turn it over to counsel to inquire. The first question I have is, does anybody know any of the four attorneys seated here? Does anybody know Detective McClure? Anybody know Mr. Post? Anybody know me? So far, so good. Any of the potential jurors know each other? Okay, now I'm going to start with you, number two, but I'll caution both of you when refer to numbers and not names, okay? All right, so tell me, juror number two, how do you know juror number 15?
Daughter dated his son for about 5 years, so we see each other often.
Okay, for currently?
Yes.
Okay. How do you like him?
Good guy.
And it's your daughter?
Yep,
How do you like his son?
great guy.
Okay. Now, let's assume for a minute that you get selected to serve. You're one of the 12 that deliberates, and 15 is also back there deliberating. If you guys come to opposite conclusions as to what the verdict should be, and you can't agree on that, if the next time you see each other in that context that you described, would that cause a problem in your relationship?
No,
Okay. If you thought he was completely out of his mind on what he decided and you guys had a spirited discussion back there, would that impact you in your future relationship?
no,
If you sat there and deliberated and you listened, would you listen to his argument as to why he believes as he does?
yes,
Would you consider that argument?
yes,
And if you still disagreed, would you stick to your guns and decide what you think is proper?
yes,
Okay. Any issue at all if you guys were serving together?
I don't see it.
Okay. 15, same question to you. If you guys came to opposite conclusions when you left here, say next week you see each other, would that be a problem for you?
No,
Would you listen to and consider his view of the evidence?
yes,
And if you disagreed, would you stand your position?
yes,
Any issue at all if you guys served together?
no.
Anybody else? Okay. I read you the charges in the indictment. Does anybody have any knowledge of this case from what I read to you? Now, has anybody served on a jury before, meaning made it through this process and gotten selected to sit and listen to a trial? Okay, your number, please. Well, let's start over here. Let's start with 21. Go ahead and tell me about your prior service.
It was in Summit County. I don't know if that makes a difference. And-
They're a little different in Summit County.
Yeah, so I was chosen to sit on a grand jury
Okay,
as alternate number 13. Also, I was chosen to sit on a jury where just before the trial was to start, a plea bargain was made. And then another one where just before the trial was set to start, the bailiff called it a Matlock moment because the witness saw the defendant and said that wasn't him.
okay, all right. Were those all in Summit County?
Yes,
How long ago was the grand jury service?
the grand jury was probably 15 years.
What about the other two?
Well, I'm 57 and this will be my sixth time.
Okay,
So starting at age, I think maybe around 23.
okay, the last time you were in on those, the two that didn't, you
I
were,
think grand jury was the last time
okay.
I was in, and that was about 15 years ago.
Okay, so if you remember correctly from your grand jury service, the grand jurors would hear from witnesses and the prosecutor and the grand
Yes.
jurors would simply decide whether there was probable cause to believe this individual committed this crime, right?
Yes,
You understand the difference here is if you're a trial juror, you have the burden of proof that the state has to prove is beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not this probable cause standard. You
Yes.
understand that? Would you be able to apply that standard if you serve?
yes,
All right. Anything about your prior service, either as an almost trial juror or the grand jury that would get in the way of you serving as a fair and impartial juror in this case?
no.
Okay. And in the back, we have one, what your number, please?
34.
And tell me about your prior service.
I was in your courtroom in the jury in 2020.
Okay.
And then I was on a jury in 2001, I think it was, in this courthouse. I don't remember who the judge was.
What kind of case was it in 2020?
Child abuse.
And did you deliberate on a verdict in that case?
We did.
And did that jury reach a verdict?
We did.
All right. And what about in 2001? What kind of case was that?
I think it was a domestic violence case.
Right. And you served all the way through that case?
Yes,
And did that jury reach a verdict?
we did.
All right. Anything about your service in either case that would prevent you from being fair to both sides in this case?
No.
All right, now, did you enjoy your jury service in 2020?
I did.
Did you enjoy it in 2001?
I did.
See, I wasn't lying. See, people enjoy this stuff. Now, obviously, you recognize this is a completely different case,
Yes.
different set of facts, and to a certain degree, different set of jury instructions that I'll give. You understand that?
Yes.
Because they are tailored to the specific case. Some of them are the same, but there are particular ones that are unique to this case. If you're selected to serve, and you're sitting there, and I'm giving you jury instructions, and you say to yourself, well, that's not what I remember from 01 or from 20. That's not right, it should be something else. Would you discount that thought and decide this case based only on what goes on in this courtroom and the instructions I give you?
I would.
Any problem doing that at all?
No.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? Number 33, go ahead.
I was in Cuyahoga County, the celebration court for a felony charge,
How long ago was that?
2020, I believe.
Okay. And did you deliberate on a verdict in that case?
No, I was dismissed.
Okay. So you went through this process and got
I
bumped?
was seated in a jury box, and after questioning by the defense attorney, I was dismissed.
Okay. Anything about that?
It was a weapons charge.
All right. Anything about that service that would prevent you from being fair in this case?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Has anybody had any prior legal training of any sort? Number 4.
I don't know if I could call it training, but I was the mental health coordinator and the liaison with the juvenile court in Austin, Texas for about 5 years.
How long ago?
I retired in 1959. It's been 12 years now.
All right, so explain to me a little bit about what your job was with that position.
I worked for the Mental Health Authority in Austin, Texas. I was fortunate at the time to the juvenile court, and I represented clients with mental health issues in the court and in the community.
So you would go to court and advocate for whatever
Yes, sir.
position? Okay. Anything about that experience that would, do you think, interfere with you, your ability to be fair and impartial to both sides in this case?
I don't see it would affect it at all.
Okay. Would you, but you've never been called for jury service, right?
I was called twice, but I never got picked.
Okay.
They sent me home.
Okay, all right, all right. Anybody else? Number 8, go ahead.
I've gone to school for, law, for labor laws and things with, management, with human resources, over the last decade.
All right, when you say you went to school, explain, or how was that? What was it?
I mean, I went to college, and took classes on law, and,
Okay.
I need to know labor laws for my job,
Okay,
what I do.
all right.
So I keep up to date on things.
And when's the last time you went through any sort of training for that?
I do it continuously, so, I mean, like, I look at, I read all the time, and I'm constantly, learning and educating myself with it.
Okay, anything about that training that you think would interfere with you being fair to both sides in this case?
Not at this time.
Okay. Is there anything about your training that you think gives you an advantage of being a juror in this case? Like knowing more than other individuals may about, I know it's labor law, but knowing more about the law?
Yes, probably.
Okay. Will you be able to set aside what you know about the law from your training and experience and decide this case based only on the evidence that you receive, the testimony you receive, and the instructions that I give you?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Any doubt at all that you would be able to do that?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, does anybody, and I'll kind of lump this all together, have any ethical, moral, religious, philosophical views that would prevent them from sitting as a juror in this case? Now, my expectation of talking to counsel before you guys were brought in here is that this case will take probably 3 days before it's concluded. So I understand everybody's busy and has obligations, but beyond work and family obligations, is there anything that would prevent anybody from sitting here and as a trial juror for that period of about 3 days? Okay, number 5, go ahead.
I have a surgery scheduled for Friday, so I have pre-op Thursday.
You have pre-op Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Okay. Does anybody have any physical problems that would prevent them from sitting here and listening to the testimony? And just so you're aware, usually around an hour and a half is the longest. We'll go maybe an hour 45 before we take a 15-minute break, and then you get an hour at lunch. Anybody have physical problems that would prevent them from sitting for that period of time? Now, as I said, a little bit earlier, it's your duty as a juror to decide whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty of the charges in the indictment. If he is found guilty, it becomes my duty to determine what sentence to impose. And I make that decision with the benefit of more information than you will get, okay? And gives me I get a large amount of other information, not relevant to this trial, but other things to consider. Does anybody think they cannot perform that duty of deciding whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty without concerning themselves of what might happen if he is found guilty? Would you set that out of your mind? Because your function is only to determine, to find the facts, follow the law, and come to that conclusion. Anybody have any problem with that? Okay. Now, lastly, has anybody formed any opinions at this point how this case should come out? Gotta be careful when you yawn, your hand almost went up. All right, in a minute here, I'm gonna turn it over to counsel for the state to inquire, and then followed by counsel for the defendant. What they say or what they do is not evidence. Evidence is all the testimony received from the witnesses, the exhibits admitted during the trial, facts agreed to by counsel, and any facts I require you to accept as true. Since it's your duty to decide this case based solely on the evidence, as is later defined for you, you must not consider as evidence any statement or act of any attorney made during the trial, including during voir dire. Ms. Gold?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. My name is Haley Gold, and along with my co-counsel, Lauren Tuttle, we represent the state of Ohio and the Lake County Prosecutor's Office of Charles Colson. And also seated at trial table with us is Detective McClure from the Madison Township Police Department. And because he is the investigating officer in this case, the law permits him to sit with us throughout the trial. We want to thank everyone for coming this morning. I know that the conditions were not the best, and we appreciate that everyone was here on time and that everyone still showed up for jury duty this morning. During trial, we are going to be putting pictures and videos on the screen. Some of those videos will have audio, and we'll be playing additional exhibits that are audio. Did anyone have trouble when you were watching your juror video this morning, seeing what was up on the screen or hearing what was up on the screen? Now, as the judge told you, this part of the trial is called the voir dire, and it's the only part of the trial where we as the attorneys get to have a two-way conversation with you and ask questions of you. So during this time, we are going to ask that you be open with us, that you be honest with us. If there's any question that we ask that you don't feel comfortable answering in front of the group, please let us know, and we can talk to the judge about speaking with you privately outside the presence of the rest of the jurors. Some of the questions that we ask may seem personal. It is not our intention to embarrass you or to offend you, but there are certain things that we need to know so that we can ensure that both the state of Ohio and the defendant have a fair trial. Does anyone on the panel know anyone who works at the Lake County Prosecutor's Office, whether that is investigators, secretaries, assistant prosecutors, in any capacity? Okay, juror number 33, who do you know?
I know Rocco DeFerro.
And how do you know Rocco?
We were in cardiac rehab together.
And while you were getting to know Mr. DiPiero, did he speak with you about his job as an assistant prosecutor here?
No, we had more important things to do.
Okay. And knowing that Mr. DiPiero works for this office, do you believe that you can still sit fairly and impartially as a juror on this case?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, juror number 1, who do you know?
Joe Madio.
And how do you know Mr. Madio? Does he talk to you about his job as an investigator? And so based on that and based on the fact that you don't even really know what he does, do you believe that you can sit fairly and impartially as a juror in this case? And if, knowing that he works for the prosecutor's office, if you decide in the end of this case that the verdict should be not guilty, do you think that, would you feel worried about rendering a verdict of not guilty knowing that you'll see him? Okay. Thank you. Does anyone else know any member? Juror number 2.
I know Joe Maggio.
How do you know Joe Maggio?
When he used to be a cop at Whitfield.
And does he speak to you, now that he works for the Lake County Prosecutor's Office, does he speak to you about his job?
Did not even know he was in the county prosecutor's office, so he just.
Okay. So, knowing that you may see him again in the future, would you be hesitant to render a verdict of not guilty if you think that's how the case should turn out? Do you believe you can still be fair and impartial? Okay. Does anyone else on the panel know any member of the Lake County Prosecutor's Office? Okay. Does anyone know anyone who works in the Lake County court system? Juror number 8, who do you know?
My uncle Dennis was a judge for Lake County.
And while he was a judge, did you speak with him about his job as a judge?
He used to talk to me about it when I was growing up.
And given that judges are impartial and they decide the law while the jury will decide the facts, do you believe that your relationship with your uncle would affect your ability to be fair and impartial?
No.
Does anyone else know anyone? Okay, juror number 16, who do you know?
A lawyer, John Gundy. He does civil law.
And do you speak with him about his job?
Not really.
Do you think that that relationship would affect your ability to be fair and impartial?
No.
Thank you. Who else? Okay, juror number 20.
Becky Castell. She's my sister-in-law.
And do you speak with her about her job?
No.
Do you think that given that relationship, would you still be able to be a fair and impartial juror in this case?
Yes.
Okay, number 24, who do you know?
Mike Reed.
And given that relationship, would you be able to be a fair and impartial juror in this case? Thank you. Who else? Juror number 33.
My wife used to work for Judge Clammer.
And I'm assuming that, what role did your wife have for Judge Clammer?
She was a secretary there under Betsy Swindell.
And given the nature of her previous job, would you still be able to be a fair and impartial juror in this case?
Sure, we didn't talk about what she did.
Anyone else? Does anyone know an employee of the Lake County Crime Lab? Does anyone know any employees at the Lake County Victim Assistance Program? Juror number 18, who do you know?
My granddaughter, Marissa Bowman.
And do you talk with her about her job?
No,
Does she work at a municipal court?
she works with the sheriff's office.
So given that relationship and that there will be a victim in this case, do you believe that you can sit as a fair and impartial juror?
Yes.
I'm going to read a list of witnesses in this case. You will not hear from every person on this list, but we've included people whose names may be mentioned throughout the trial by other witnesses. So at the end, please let me know if you are familiar with anyone on this list. Devin Quiggle, Tara P. Shea, Angela Sekarak, Brittany Loomis, Sarah Kuntz, Natalie Coleman, Jennifer Stauffer, Michael Brewer, Greg Walker, Madeline Womack, James Turek, Mario Powell, Laura Sherwood, Dr. Amy Rushing, Jordan Edgell, Becca Silverstein Gross, Jacob Ramasher, Patrolman Jonathan O'Leary, Sergeant Curtis Severco, Detective McClure, Patrolman Ryan Shannon, Patrolman Justin Dahl, Detective Scott Gubinyar, Sergeant Jennifer Gamier, Patrolman Eric Sharp, Kevin Rako, Saeed Daber, Robert Nagel, Scott Kintop, Sarah McCullough, and Sydney Russell. Does anyone know an individual on the list I just read? Okay, juror number 2, who do you know?
Jacob Ramasher.
And how do you know him?
He's working.
And if he testified as a witness in this case, do you believe that you could still evaluate his testimony the same as you would evaluate any other witness's testimony?
Yes.
Do you still see him?
No.
Who else? Juror number 8.
Chief Ronisher.
And how do you know him?
He's
And if he were to testify in this case, or his name were to be mentioned, do you believe that you would be able to evaluate that testimony the same as you would with any other witness?
Yes.
Who else? Okay, juror number 17.
Dr. Amy Rushing.
How do you know Dr. Rushing?
I work with her husband.
And do you speak with her husband about her job at all? Have you met Dr. Rushing? And when you've met her, have you spoken with her about her job? Do you believe that if she testified, you would be able to evaluate her testimony the same you would for any other witness? And knowing that you may see her in the future and that she is testifying for the state of Ohio, if you at the end of the trial determined that the verdict should be not guilty, would you feel worried about seeing her in the future? Okay, thank you. Number 20, who do you know?
There's several people on that list. I don't
Okay.
know if I know them in person, but if I saw them, I probably know them. And I believe I know Mr. Quiggle. And I just find it really difficult to come to a decision knowing prior things.
How do you know Mr. Quiggle?
I really don't want to say out loud because it might.
Okay, Judge, can we talk to juror 20
Yeah,
later?
after we conclude.
Thank you. Who else had their hand up? Thank you for sharing that. We'll speak with you. Does anyone else know? Sir, what is your juror number?
35.
Okay.
Is it, the spell last name was Scott Gubernauer?
Yes, Gubanyar. Does anyone else on the panel know any witness name I just read? Has anyone on the panel been convicted of a felony offense? Does anyone have any family or friends who are police officers? Juror number 1.
Yeah, my dad was a patrolman,
And I'm assuming you've spoken with your dad about his job?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Given that your dad was a police officer, do you believe that you can evaluate the testimony of a police officer the same that you would for any other witness, or would you give that higher weight than other witnesses?
I don't know, that might be difficult.
If you are instructed to evaluate police officer testimony the same way you would with any other witness, do you believe you'd be able to follow that instruction? Thank you. Who else had their hand raised?
Hold on, before you go on. Juror number 1, your job necessitates you have a lot of contact with police officers, and as well as because of your father's occupation. You indicate that the police kind of get a bad rap out there. My words, not yours, but in your jury questionnaire.
I just know how difficult their job is.
Okay. And do you also recognize that, do you believe you have the ability to sit and listen to witnesses and determine whether that witness is credible or not credible in what they say?
I think I would.
Okay. Would you, would you give that same ear when a police officer testifies?
I would do my best.
Okay, when you say you would do your best, if for instance a police officer's testifying and you're listening to it, and you sit there and you say, well, that makes 0 sense, that could not have happened, or I don't believe that happened, would you be able to evaluate that and come to that conclusion if that were your conclusion?
Yes.
Okay. So all that anybody's looking for is a commitment from those that hear the case that you use your tools of determining credibility, not based on what they're wearing, okay, or what they do, but what they say. Can you do that?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Who else had their hand raised? Juror number 2.
So I work for the city of Wickliffe, so I deal with police officers on a regular basis, and I'm also a council person that's on stage. So, talk with the chiefs and assistant chiefs.
And in your job with the city of Wickliffe, in what capacity do you deal with police officers?
Just basically day-to-day walking past them, talking to them at the gas pumps, where I'm in the service department, so we run into each other, but it's not like I deal with their job.
So we're not going to be having any police officers from Wickliffe testify in this case, but as you know, there will be police officers. And will you be able to evaluate their testimony the same you would any other witness?
Yeah.
Thank you. Who else had their hand raised? Juror number 3.
I have a friend that's a police officer in Euclid, but I really don't talk to him that often, so.
And so then would you be able to evaluate police officer testimony fairly?
I think so.
Thank you. Well, juror number 5.
My friend is the retired police chief for Mayfield Village. I have another friend who's currently police chief in another city in Lake County. 2 friends that are officers in Thompson, and I think there's probably one of them I'm missing.
What city in Lake County?
It's actually for Holman.
And do you speak with them about their jobs?
I speak with them daily.
Given that you have friends who are police officers and other individuals in your life who you speak with daily, would you be able to evaluate the testimony of a police officer the same as any other witness?
Yes.
Thank you. Who else has their hand raised? Juror number 10.
My girlfriend's father is the county sheriff.
And do you speak with him about his job?
Rarely.
Would you be able to evaluate this testimony as a police officer the same as any other witness?
Yes.
And if in the end of this trial you think the verdict should be not guilty, would you be hesitant to find that way knowing that your girlfriend's father would hear you found someone not guilty? Thank you. Anyone else in the jury box? Juror number 8.
I've been with the police officers in Berlin.
And would you be able to evaluate a police officer's testimony the same as any other witness?
Sure.
Juror number 18.
I am friends with a retired civilian police officer.
And do you talk to that friend about their job? Would you be able to still sit fairly and impartially on this jury?
Yes.
Thank you. Juror number 19.
My brother-in-law.
And do you speak with your brother-in-law about his job?
I'm not on speaking terms with him.
Would you be able to evaluate the testimony of a police officer the same as any other witness?
Yes.
Thank you. Juror number 15.
My uncle's a retired police officer.
And do you speak with your uncle about his job?
No, not anymore.
Did you used to before he was retired?
Yes.
And given that relationship, would you be able to fairly and impartially evaluate the testimony of a police officer? You wouldn't lend them any more weight than any other witness?
Sure.
Juror number 24.
I have multiple friends and a few cousins.
And do you speak with them about their job? And do you discuss specific cases with them that they're working on? Given the fact that you have those relationships, would you be able to evaluate the testimony of police officers the same as any other witness? Would you be hesitant to render a verdict of not guilty because you'd have to tell police officer, family and friends that that's what you found in this case? Sir, what is your jury number? 36.
I have several friends that are police officers, and switch ones up.
And do you speak with them about their cases?
Hardly ever talk to them, but I know.
And given those relationships, would you be able to fairly and impartially evaluate the testimony of police officers? Okay. Anyone else? Juror number 33.
I had 2 son-in-laws that were, one was Brecksville, police officer, he has since left his department. My other son-in-law is Norwalk sergeant at the current time. And I've spent 19 years riding along with him. Yes, we do discuss everything.
So have you ever been on a ride along when a crime happens?
Yes.
Okay.
Meth labs, drug busts, car crashes.
What about a shooting?
No.
Well, given that you have this experience in ride-alongs, how would you evaluate the testimony of a police officer compared to any other witness?
It would have to be the same
So you,
I know they hold themselves to a higher level than the common ordinary individual. Would they lie? Who knows? But you have to take everything at face value.
do you believe that you would be able to listen to what they're saying and examine their credibility the same as any other witness?
Sure, sure.
And give their testimony the same weight as you would any other witness?
Yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone have any strong negative views or very strong positive views of the police? Has anyone ever received a parking ticket you think or a speeding ticket you think you really didn't deserve? Any negative or positive views? Extreme one way or the other. During this trial, you're going to hear testimony from several firefighters and paramedics who work for the Madison Fire Department. Does anyone have experience as a firefighter or paramedic? Yes, juror number one. Would you be able to evaluate the testimony of firefighters and paramedics the same way you would?
Yes.
In your current job, you're responding to? Are you currently responding to like crime
Yes.
scenes? And
Yes.
do you respond to shootings?
Yes.
How often?
Probably a couple times a year.
And
3, 4.
when you respond to shootings, what kind of steps do you take, and what is your role when you arrive on scene?
I'm the supervisor, so most of the time I don't really have my hands in it, more making sure that the scene is safe for the guys to work.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else have experience as a firefighter? Juror number 20.
My husband served on the Madison Fire Department for 10 years. There's a
Um,
lot of people that are on there now. So I know them.
And I'm assuming while your husband worked for the Madison Fire Department, you spoke about his job with him. Do you know Lieutenant Brewer or Greg Walker from the Madison Fire
No.
District? And even though you don't know them, knowing that your husband used to work there and they work there now, do you think that you could evaluate their testimony the same as any other witness?
Yeah.
Thank you. During this trial, you are going to hear testimony from nurses who responded to help the victim after he had been shot and from the surgeon who operated on the victim. Does anyone here have any medical training as a nurse, as a surgeon, or in other capacities, even as a paramedic, where you're responding to a situation like that? Juror number 17.
I actually work in the operating.
And where do you work?
I work at University Hospital Base Campus.
Do you work in the emergency department?
No.
Do you ever operate on shooting victims?
Sometimes, only if it affects the heart.
Do you believe that you would be able, knowing that we'll hear from a surgeon who operated on the victim during this case, and you probably know a lot more background about like surgery than we're going to get into on the stand during her testimony, would you still be able to listen to the facts as they're presented on the stand without going too far into other knowledge that you have from your job?
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Juror number 15.
I was trained as a crisis response worker in behavioral health. I used to be on a team that would respond to mass shootings or shootings in the workplace, to go in and work with victims.
So what would your role be when you responded?
To provide essentially crisis behavioral health services.
Thank you. Has anyone on the panel ever been a victim of a crime? Juror number 8.
When I was a teenager, I was sexually assaulted.
Thank you for telling that. And as a result of that, did you end up making a police report?
Yes,
And was that individual prosecuted?
yes,
Did that happen in Lake County?
yes.
And do you believe that the process was handled fairly and justly?
I guess so.
Was that person ultimately convicted?
Yes.
Was the Madison Township Police Department involved in that?
No.
Is there anything about that experience that would affect your ability to be fair to the defendant or fair to the state of Ohio?
No.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who's been a victim of a crime? Juror number 15.
Sexual assault as a child.
And after that happened, was that reported to the police?
No.
Is there anything about that situation, given that this is not a sexual assault case, that would cause you to have, be unable to be impartial towards the defendant? Thank you. Juror number 21.
Sexual assault as a child.
And was that reported to the police?
Yes.
And as a result of that police report, was that individual prosecuted?
Yes.
And did that happen in Lake County?
No.
Do you believe that in the end you had justice?
Yes.
And do you believe that based on that experience you would be able to be fair and impartial to both the defendant and the state of Ohio?
Yes.
Thank you. Who else? Juror number 23.
Multiple, unfortunately. So there was an attempted assault when I was a teenager that was not reported to the police. My mother kidnapped me as a teenager, again, not reported to the police. And I think that's it, actually.
And is there anything about having been a victim of a crime that would cause you to have negative feelings towards the defendant in this case?
Only if the crime was against a child.
Do you believe, well, so in this case, it was not, the victim in this case is not a minor. Do you believe that you can be fair and impartial? Has anyone else been a victim of a crime? Ma'am, what is your jury number? 25. Juror number 25, what crime were you a victim of?
Childhood sexual assault.
And was that reported to the police?
Yeah.
And as a result of that police report, was that individual prosecuted? Was that in Lake County?
Yeah.
Because that individual was not prosecuted, does that result in negative feelings towards police?
No.
Do you think you would hold anything about that crime not being prosecuted against the officers who testify in this case? Thank you. Juror number 30. Okay, thank you. Juror number 30, we'll discuss that in private. Anyone else? Juror number 24. And was that reported to the police?
Yes.
And as a result of that police report, was that individual prosecuted? Given that there was a report made but it wasn't prosecuted, do you have negative feelings about how it was handled by the police officers? I'm sorry?
No.
And would you be able to be fair and impartial in this case? Is there anyone else who's been a victim of a crime? Juror number 20.
Yes, I had my car stolen, and I was stolen from me, and, my children were, sexually abused.
Thank you for sharing that. After your car was stolen, did you make a police report?
Yeah, we prosecuted.
Okay, and do you feel that there was justice in that situation? And after your children were assaulted, was that reported to the police?
Yes.
And was that individual prosecuted?
No.
Do you believe that that situation was mishandled?
Yeah, probably.
And given that a police report was made but that individual was not prosecuted, do you think you would hold that against police officers who testify in this case?
No.
Would you be able to be fair and impartial?
Yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone on the panel own a firearm? Of those, so can you please keep your hands up if you own a firearm? So jurors number 4, 5, 10, 20, 21, 23, 33, 30. And sir, in the back corner, what is your number? 28. And of those of you who own a firearm, does anyone have a carrying a concealed weapons permit? which in the state of Ohio, as long as you're a qualified adult, is not something you still need to have, but we know some people still do. Okay, 33, 30, 28, and 5. So those of you,
I used to have one, I don't have any more.
okay, thank you, number 4.
No, no, no.
So those of you who have firearms, who carries it with you at all times? Okay, juror number 5. How you carry it with you every day on a regular basis?
Yes.
Have you ever, what is the purpose of having the firearm with you?
With my former job, I used to spend a lot of time in abandoned buildings and areas where you would run into people that, you know, you needed to have for protection. And then you just kind of get used to having a gun with you and you just kind of keep it with you. And I have my concealed carry because I travel a lot, so I keep it for reciprocity in other states.
And when you have your gun on you, how do you keep it on your person?
Holster on my side.
Have you ever had a situation where you have to remove it from your holster?
Once or twice in abandoned buildings over the years.
And have you ever had to use your gun in self-defense?
No.
Of those of you who carry your gun on you at all times, can you please raise your hands again? Okay, juror number 30.
Have a private conversation also.
Yes, thank you. Has anyone here who has a firearm ever encountered a situation where you have to remove your firearm from its holster, from your pocket, in self-defense? Does anyone have negative feelings about firearms? Juror number 22, can you tell us a little more about that?
I just don't care for them at all. I shot a gun once at a range and that was it. Just don't care.
Thank you. Juror number 23.
I'm not against guns, I'm just against people who don't responsibly keep them.
Thank you. Juror number 36. Is there anyone else who has negative feelings about firearms? Has anyone experienced a situation that you would consider road rage? Has anyone experienced a situation that you would consider road rage that has resulted in you having further interactions with the individual in the other car, whether that be, making signals at each other through your windows because you're pulled up next to each other, or result in pulling over? Okay. Juror number 21, can you tell us more about that situation?
So I was on the interstate and I was attempting to exit the interstate. The lane for getting off was also the same lane for getting on. And the car beside me seemed to be matching my speed. So I couldn't get off, so I yelled an expletive. And he followed me off the exit ramp, and I got stopped at a red light, and he got out of the car and threw a beer bottle at my windshield.
Did your windshield break?
No.
So what happened? What happened next?
The light turned green and I left.
And has that a situation affected you afterwards?
Yes.
How so?
I basically will let anybody go ahead of me. I don't care. I'm not in that much of a hurry. I don't want to be shot just because I'm trying to get off the freeway.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Who else had their hand raised? Juror number 22.
Just yesterday, actually, somebody cut me off because of the bad weather. Some guy in this pickup truck trying to get to, I don't know, probably the house, my driveway. It's hard driving, and he just cut me off, almost hit my car, and I gave him the finger, and that was pretty much about it. I mean, that happens a lot with people.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Who else had their hand raised? Juror number 25.
A couple of years ago, I was hit, and the people had taken off, and I just kept driving kind of next to them and looked behind them.
So the other car also stopped?
Yeah, once the police came,
And did you have any interaction with the person in the other car?
not much.
And was the situation resolved? Did they pay for your car or their insurance?
No, they didn't have insurance.
So has that experience still affected you after the day that it happened?
Yeah, financially, but that was a couple of years ago.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Who else had their hand raised? Juror number 35.
It wasn't myself directly, but my a relative of mine was involved in a road rage incident, which involved a firearm.
And you said it involved a firearm. Was anyone shot during that incident? Okay. Having that have happened in your family where a firearm was involved, hearing, I don't know the specific set of facts in your case, but something generally similar in this case, do you think you could be fair and impartial?
It might have an impact.
Thank you. Juror number 4.
It was a long time ago, but he got cut off. The guy, I was riding with somebody else. The car in front of us, it spun rocks on his brand new paint job. So there was a bunch of words exchanged, and then the other guy that did that pull out rifle and started shooting at us. But that was all. He left.
Did you or the person with you get shot?
All the time, so I really didn't pay attention. Well, I paid attention back then, but it's been a long time, so it doesn't affect me anymore.
So listening to a trial where there's a shooting, do you think you would be able to be
It was
fair and
a long time
impartial?
ago, so no, I'm not worried about it.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
You asked.
Yes. Who else? Juror number 8.
We were at the Monsters game the other day, and you know, when you pull out, you're supposed to like do every other car. Well, we went to go pull out, and this other car thought they could pull out, so the guy, we started to go, and they wanted to go, and the guy got out of his car and just like started punching the window and like attacking our car. I mean, like that stuff happens, it seems like all the time now.
And were you able to then pull away quickly, or did you have to stay in your car while he was attacking you?
Just like punching the car and kicking it and like swearing and yelling.
Okay.
It was really scary.
Okay, I'm sorry that happened. Thank you for sharing that with us. Was there anyone else whose hands were raised? Juror number 12.
I had a similar incident about 15 years ago where someone got upset and followed me off the freeway into the parking lot and banged on the car window. Thankfully, there was other people who got into it and alone, but
So was the parking lot, did you pull off into the parking lot so that they would hopefully stop following you?
yes,
Okay, and then they followed you in, and then did they confront you in the parking lot?
yes.
Okay, so then what happened?
They were screaming through windows, calling me all kinds of horrible things, and like I froze. And like there was other witnesses who kind of engaged with him and got him to cool down and walk away. And I continued on my way home.
So if you heard testimony during this trial about a road rage incident and shots fired as a result, having recently or having gone through what you just described, would you be able to be fair and impartial in this case?
I think so, yes.
Thank you. Did anyone else have their hands raised? Juror number 36.
Last summer, I was driving on the highway by 90 nature curve, and traffic kept getting backed up. I go in the passing lane, the car's coming, it's called impeding traffic. I pull away, get out of the lane. Well, somebody else went next to me, thought I took his spot. I was just trying to get out of the passing lane, and this guy put his finger up next to me at the window, and I start laughing at him, and all of a sudden, he starts reaching under the seat. And I'm like, he's going for a gun. So I just slowed down and ducked back into the cars. I thought he was going to wait for me on the highway and follow me all the way out to the.
Did he follow you home?
No, he branched off at 271, I think, and I continued down to, but I thought he was going for a gun because he just started digging. I'm like, I didn't even know he was there, but it would have been his next move to take my lane, and I was just trying to keep the high-speed lane open.
And has does that continue to affect you after that incident was over?
I drive slower, but I'm a 5 mile an hour speed limit. If the car is behind me, I get out, it's way out of 10. I'll get out of the way.
And given that experience and that you will hear about road rage in this case, would you be able to be fair and impartial?
Sure.
Thank you. Now, the offenses committed in this case took place at 2999 McMacken Road in Madison Township. It's the address of the Cleveland Clinic's Madison Medical Office Building. It has an express care, a family medicine practice, and other medical services. Is anyone familiar with this location? Juror number 20. Given that you're familiar with this location, you're going to see pictures of this location, hear testimony about it. Is that somewhere that you have gone before, somewhere you drive past?
My doctor's located there.
Okay, so knowing that, and knowing that this incident happened there, do you believe you can be fair and impartial?
Sure.
Thank you. Juror number 24.
My doctor is also located there.
Do you believe that you could be fair and impartial after hearing that the events happened at somewhere that you go? Thank you. Juror number 9.
My sister-in-law works there,
What is your sister-in-law's name?
Ashley Head.
And given that your sister-in-law works there and you're going to hear that shots were fired in the parking lot, do you believe that you can be fair and impartial in this case? Thank you. Anyone else? Now, there's two types of evidence that will be presented during this trial. There's direct evidence and there's circumstantial evidence. So we just got a lot of snow. If you are standing in your window watching it snow, that's direct evidence that it's snowing. If you go to sleep and there's no snow, but you wake up in the morning and the ground is covered in snow, that's circumstantial evidence that it snowed. You didn't actually see the snow fall from the sky, but you know what snow looks like. You know what it looks like when it snowed. And in the state of Ohio, both direct and circumstantial evidence hold the same weight. Does anyone think that shouldn't be true, that that doesn't make sense? That both types of evidence should be given the same weight. So evidence includes testimony from the witnesses who will sit on the stand. It includes photographs that you'll see, videos that you'll see, audio recordings that you'll hear. And this, as the state of Ohio, we have the burden of proof. So we have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt each element of each offense that the defendant is charged with. And beyond a reasonable doubt is not beyond all doubt. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. So in the examples we just talked about with the snow, if you're thinking to yourself, if you go to sleep and there's no snow, and you wake up and there's snow, and you're thinking to yourself, maybe it didn't snow last night. Maybe someone in a state with a lot of snow brought in truckloads and truckloads of snow and just dumped it everywhere to confuse us. That's a doubt, but that's not a reasonable doubt. So there's a difference between a doubt and a reasonable doubt. So can everyone agree that if selected as a juror in this case, you'll hold the state to the burden of beyond a reasonable doubt, but not beyond all doubt? Does that make sense? Does that not make sense to anyone? Thank you. So as you heard, the defendant is charged with felonious assault with firearm specifications. Is there anyone who feels that based on those charges, you just cannot sit as a juror? You cannot hear about someone being shot, you cannot hear about firearms, you just can't sit on this case? Juror number 23.
I'm not necessarily having issues with that, I just feel like it's important to disclose my father was convicted of felony with a weapon, so.
Thank you for telling us that. Now, the elements of each case were in the indictment that the judge has read, but there are also certain things that the state does not need to prove, like we call them collateral matters. So motive. As the state of Ohio, we don't have to prove to you as an element why the defendant committed an offense or why certain things happen. We have to prove to you the elements. So there might be things in the end of the trial you wish you heard about or you wish you knew, but are not elements. And can everyone agree that you will hold the state to proving the elements of the offenses and not other matters that you may still be wondering about? Fair enough? Now, at the end of this trial, the court may instruct you on self-defense. And given that instruction, you must follow the law as the judge gives it to you. And self-defense is something that might be different legally than what you thought it was or what you think it should be. Generally, the state will have the burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant did not act in self-defense. Can everyone here agree that you will follow the self-defense law as the judge instructs you, even if you disagree with what the self-defense law is? Does anyone have an issue with that? Think that if you don't agree with the self-defense law, you just can't follow what the judge tells you? Thank you. Now, at the end of this case, the judge will provide you with a long list of instructions on the law. It will encompass everything that you need to guide your decision. And ultimately, the judge has the decision about which instructions are given to you and will ask that you follow only the law that the judge gives you. The judge will instruct you that the defendant is presumed innocent. As he sits here, he is not guilty of either of the offenses that the judge has read from the indictment. And as a juror, it is up to you to determine the credibility of the witnesses who will take the stand, and to do that, we'll ask that you use your common sense and your life experiences to determine the credibility of each of the witnesses. Does anyone believe that it would be too difficult for you to hear the testimony of witnesses and determine their credibility? Now, during this trial, it is the jury's function to determine the facts and the judge's function to determine the law. So as a juror, if selected, you will hear the testimony and at the end decide if the defendant is guilty or not. And we ask that you use common sense and reason to make this decisions. So thank you guys for answering all of our questions honestly and truthfully.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gold. I think at this point, before we get to questioning by defense counsel, I'm going to give you about a 10-minute break. When you go out in the hallway, you can talk to each other about anything you want to talk about, with the exception of what we've just talked about for the past hour and 15 minutes, okay? So that's the only thing off limits. So take about 10 minutes, and then Stan will round you up at that time.
All rise.
Have a seat real quick. One thing I forgot to talk about was forfeiture spec on each count that I did not include. I did not read that I'm going to make that determination as opposed to a jury finding. Okay?
The only other question, there were a couple of jurors that wanted to speak in private.
Yeah, I'm going to get them after Michael is done.
Okay.
And then I'll question them, and I'll let you guys ask anything you want to ask of them also.
Okay.
And then one additional issue, Judge. Mr. Marine noticed as a juror was being dismissed, we thought that was number 27, whose name is Eduardo Valdez Guillen, but it turns out it was actually number 31, Edward Lordoy, that is not here. Number 27 is still sitting in the back. Number 31 is who's missing now, but they're both named Edward.
So 27's here, 31's not.
Yes.
Yep.
So I think 31 is the one who had the family member that is dying.
Okay. Okay, anything else?
Not from the state. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll start about 5:02, okay?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Let's go. Okay, well, let's do that together. Just- Either you-
I'd like to use this for. Why don't you come here?
You should, as a policy.
Yeah.
Sit up in your chair. You're like this. Just sit like a human. Okay. Yeah, I should. Do you need to use the bathroom? Okay. Questions?
And it's 20:30, we need to see the judge afterward, right?
I flagged them. Let me pull it.
20:30, I thought there was one.
Number 20 and number 30
30, okay, all right.
were the only two that
No,
specifically
those are the only two
requested.
that need to see the judge privately, right? Just the one out here.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you talked to Mr. Quiggle's aunt, was it about this event?
She's been talking about it since it happened.
How do you know her?
We work together.
Okay. And how often do you talk to her?
I talk to her every day.
When's the last time she talked about it?
Not recently, but when it happened, she had talked about it a lot.
Okay. How long do you think it's been, roughly?
Maybe, I don't know, a year. I'm not good with time, but I'd say a year. Maybe.
Do you remember specifics about, I don't want you to tell me, but do you remember specifics about what you talked about?
Mhm.
Okay. What I think I'd like to do is, in addition to jurors 20 and 30, speak with juror number 3 about that issue separately after you're done. Okay?
Perfect, Judge.
All right, Mr. Marine, go ahead.
Thanks, Judge. Morning, everybody. Let's sit up here for a moment before I get started. Jurors, I think it's 4 and 5. I know that yawns are contagious, but my gosh, I'm over here at the trial table. I feel like I need an injection of espresso watching you guys. Who else feels that way this morning? Anybody here habitually refreshing their phone, seeing if the court was going to be closed today? I was in the parking lot still hanging on a prayer that we were getting continued, so be it. My law partner's already introduced myself. My name's Michael Marine. Steve Bradley, we represent David Post. As a jumping off point, yeah, I'm not going to give any lectures. I mean, frankly, the purpose of this jury selection is not so much for me to talk about what the law is or any legal concepts. It's to learn who all of you are as people. Because let's call it like it is. So this is a felonious assault case. You'll learn someone was seriously injured. That person is alive, so this is not a murder. But it's also not a speeding ticket. And you can guarantee yourself that this is the most important thing in Dave Post's life right now, this moment. And we should all take that as seriously as a heart attack, and I know that you do. But if there's something deep down in your subconscious, something that you're not sharing with us that's going to impact your ability to be fair here, just be honest. Because that would be a tragedy if you withheld that for whatever reason. It's going to sound bad in open court. I don't think that's what the attorney wants to hear, and that somehow impacts your deliberation. So with that being said, who wanted to be here today? Nobody? See, I've always thought as an attorney that it would be such an interesting experience to sit on a jury. But I get that. I mean, everywhere else in the entire northeastern section of our country is closed at this moment. So, juror number 2, when you got the summons in this case, what was your immediate reaction?
So my immediate reaction was, never done this before, so almost 50 years. Finally get my call to be on jury, and hopefully it's a long trial because I get paid regardless.
There you go. And you get paid here, so you're double dipping a little bit.
No, I have to sign it over.
Oh, bummer. Sorry to hear that.
I won't tell the mayor you said that.
Let me ask you a question, because I know that you indicated that you work fairly often with law enforcement. When you've heard the concept now a couple of times, beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant over there is cloaked in innocence, right? He starts off at the starting line. You're to presume that he is innocent, right? But let's cut through some of the fluff here and get to the truth. When police take somebody, and, you know, they've got all these individuals who are building up this case, and they bring this to trial, you know, is there any part of you that feels like, hey, where there's smoke, there's fire?
Yes, I think it's just, regardless, you're gonna think where there's smoke, there's fire, but at the same time, I'm not a person that takes people that I don't know word, like, as fact. Like, I'm always, kind of sitting there wondering if they are telling the truth. So, I don't know, smoke is fire, yes, but at the same time, I'm listening to everything, I can make my own situation.
Juror number 10, what do you think about what juror number 2 just said?
I agree with everything you just said.
You know, you indicated, I think, maybe during the state's board year, and I know in your jury questionnaire, I don't want to paraphrase here, but essentially, you know, you feel like pro-law enforcement. Fair?
Yes.
You know, if law enforcement gets up there and is accusing this individual of having committed a crime, what are your initial feelings about that?
I believe everyone has exactly what they inspired in any situation. I don't think it would be I don't think any of these decisions would go off of individuals. The individual has to say, regardless if they are.
Okay. How do you feel about the presumption of innocence? Should it be the other way around? Should he prove that he is not guilty?
Innocent until proven guilty.
Juror number 11, what do you have to say in total?
I agree wholeheartedly with what he said. Not to just go off of one person's testimony. You have to look at all the facts and make your decision accordingly. As far as, what was the last portion? What was the last portion?
Oh, just kind of that hypothetical, you know, as opposed to somebody remains silent, and you can't infer anything from that. Does that bother you?
He has a right until he is able to speak on his behalf, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, to be fair,
Yes.
he never has to get up. That is a constitutional right that he enjoys, that all of us enjoy. And he's never got to go ahead and testify in
No,
court.
he doesn't. Yes, you're right. He doesn't have to, because he has that constitutional right not to speak.
But would that bother you if there came a point where, you know, it's the state's done with their case in chief, now it's time for us to put on evidence, and Dave never gets up and says a word? Would that bother you?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone here in the prospective panel that would bother? Number 22.
I believe that you should say something.
Okay, why is that?
Just kind of speak his mind, and maybe that would help me determine better if he is guilty or not guilty.
Number 20, I see you kind of shaking your head. Is that, you agree with that?
I think it's kind of difficult. I mean, there's part I would like to hear from him, you know?
If you didn't hear from him, I guess 20 and then 22, if you didn't hear from Dave at some point in this trial, would that impact your decision? No, listen, I appreciate you being straightforward. That's the entire point of this.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you being candid.
Mr. Marine, hang on a minute. 22.
Yeah.
One of the things that I said in the beginning, when I was given my general instructions, is that the defendant has the constitutional right to not testify in this trial if he doesn't want to. So we're in a situation here where, as I said at the outset, you guys decide the facts based on the testimony and based on the physical evidence that gets entered into, that gets admitted. I determine what the law is. And we can't have, and that's why I asked, would everybody follow that, okay? Because we can't have 12 people sitting there saying, well, that's what that crackpot said up there, okay, but here's what I think it should be. and we have 12 different versions of it. Can't function in that manner. So I guess 22, are you reluctant to follow that specific instruction?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. How do you think this system is gonna operate if everybody decides something outside of their purview, meaning 12 jurors decide things separately that is not their purview?
How do I think it'll turn out?
How do you think the system would function if you all sit back there arguing about what the law should be?
Probably won't work out so well.
It would implode.
Yeah.
It would implode. Now, I don't sit here telling you what fact you should find based on a witness testimony. I don't tell the 12 jurors, believe this guy because I say so. That's not my purview. Go ahead, Mr. Marine.
Thanks, Judge. Again, I know I've already asked this, but in line with what jurors, prospective jurors 20 and 22 have said, anybody else that's going to be a problem for them if they never hear from Dave during the course of this case? Okay.
I mean, let me just continue on that, okay? If you're charged with an offense, if next week you're sitting in here going to trial, and the case develops in such a way that your lawyers advise you shouldn't testify, okay? And you decide you don't want to testify, for whatever reason. One, because you don't think you can speak to 13 people sitting in a box looking at you and hanging on every word because you're not a good speaker, or because you're nervous when you speak. Pick one of 100 reasons that you don't think you'd be, that you should testify in your trial, okay? And that's your decision when you're on trial. Would you want the 13 people sitting here to say, well, I don't care what his reason is. If he doesn't testify, yeah, I'm gonna hold that against him. Would you want, if you were in that spot, would you want that? Okay. All right, go ahead, Mr. Marine.
Thanks, Judge. Prospective juror number 5. You know, when you look at Dave sitting at the trial table, what are your thoughts? What do you see?
See a person sitting there.
You know, if that was you sitting at the trial table right now, you know, would you want a clone of yourself sitting in judgment in the jury box?
Well, we just hope that people would, you know, judge based on the facts of the trial and nothing else.
Well, what if you could, you know, what do you think would make you a good juror for this prospective panel? If this was an interview of sorts, which it is, you know, what are the qualities that would make you a good juror?
Just being able to look at all the details and all the facts and try to listen to everything unbiasedly and put it together and come to a conclusion based on all the info provided.
Juror number 6, what about you? If you're, you know, God forbid, sitting at the trial table as a defendant, would you want someone just like yourself in the jury box?
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, no, I mean, no. I wouldn't want to.
Well, no, I'm sure you wouldn't want to be there, but would you want someone just like yourself sitting in judgment?
Sure,
Okay, and why is that?
because, good person and I wouldn't, I don't know.
I don't mean to hover and
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm a good person and try to abide by the law.
you know, I'm jumping around here a little bit on my script I have in front of me, but, you know, let's assume for a moment that you're the defendant and this is a felonious assault case involving a firearm. You know, do you think you would be the right person for this prospective panel? Juror number 7, what about you?
I hope I would be. I hope I can look at everything that's presented, without looking at who is necessarily presenting it, and take that information and come to a correct decision based on that.
Let me ask you a hypothetical. What's worse to you? An innocent person being found guilty or a guilty person being found not guilty?
I would have to say a guilty person found not, well, no. Which is worse for me,
Yeah, what's worse?
an innocent person found guilty.
Why is that?
Because that means somewhere there was a flaw in the system.
Juror 12, what do you think about what juror number 7 just said?
That's my instinctive one.
Juror number 8, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with that.
Say something else.
Sure.
Doesn't mean I have to like it.
No, to be clear,
Yes.
that's why it's a tough question.
Yes.
Neither of these are good circumstances, right?
Right.
But it's the lesser of two evils, I guess. Is there anybody else who feels differently than what these 3 women have just indicated? That it would be worse for them, hypothetically, for an innocent person to be found guilty? Everybody in agreement? All right. Juror number 9, you know, you're here now, you've braved the cold. Do you want to participate? If you had a choice right now, free ticket, you can walk right out the door, or you stay here and participate, what would you choose?
Probably walk out.
Okay? Why is that?
I do find this interesting, but I have 2 young children at home, and it's hard for me to find childcare, so there's a new trial coming up, finding someone to watch my kiddos.
How old?
I have a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Okay. I have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an 8-month-old, so I'm right there with you.
It's fun.
Yeah? Boys or girls?
2 girls.
Okay, I've got 3 boys, so my house is destroyed constantly. So. Juror number, I think we skipped a number, so juror number 14. If you had the choice, stay or go, what are you doing? Okay, why is that?
I've never been on a jury, but summoned a couple times, but never actually served. I mean, I'm sure they feel different at work, they probably want me there, but, yeah.
It's a 3-day trial, not a month-long trial.
I think, I mean, have an open mind. It's a blank slate right now. Listen to all the information, and I think I can be fair.
Well, you know, fair enough. I mean, you've kind of heard some broad brushstrokes that this is generally what the trial's about. There's a road rage incident at some point that's being alleged, followed by there's this confrontation involving a firearm. Any of that, not knowing really the minutia of this case, any of that bother you?
I mean, in general, the whole thing is terrible, but,
Right.
that it happens at all, but, no, I'm willing to, I'm open, I can weigh it, the information that I received.
Picking on back a little bit. Juror number 15. If you can walk out the door, stay or go.
I'm leaving.
You're leaving?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Juror number 16. What's your decision?
I would stay.
Okay, why is that?
I think our system of justice and having a jury is important, and I think it's an important duty. And I'm willing to, you know, do my duty.
You know, if you, again, were unfortunately seated here being accused of a crime, would you want a clone of yourself sitting up there in judgment? Do you think you'd be a good juror?
Yes.
Okay, why is that?
I think I can be fair and impartial. I think I have a basic understanding that the state has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, that the defendant is innocent. And I think no matter who's testifying, that I wouldn't just automatically trust them based on who they are, based on what they say and the evidence that's presented.
You heard the prosecutor indicate that with regard to self-defense, the state bears the burden to prove that Mr. Post was not acting in self-defense. Does that bother you?
No.
Why not?
I believe it's the state's burden to prove anything in a case, and they need to have the evidence to demonstrate that, in my opinion.
Thank you. Juror number 23. Your thoughts on that the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Post was not acting in self-defense.
I think that's fair.
Anybody feel otherwise, that it should be flipped on its head, that he should have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was acting in self-defense? Anybody feel that way? I'm going to list off a couple of different affiliations, and if everybody just in general can raise their hand if they're in any way affiliated with this group. I think we've already gone over law enforcement affiliations. Anybody personally or have a close family member or friend who works in victims assistance in some capacity? Juror number 18.
My granddaughter,
Okay.
Sheriff's Department, right there.
Okay, I think you mentioned that before. Thank you. Juror number 15.
I don't know if it applies, but I've worked with victims of severe crimes, and I work for an agency that partnered with the FBI that would work with particularly children victims.
Okay. Well, you've already been made aware, this is 2 adults or the individuals involved here. But again, I mean, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here. He's accused of a crime. They're designating someone. The state has designated this other individual as a victim. We would indicate it's an alleged victim at this point. Do you see any problems, your ability to remain fair and impartial when judging this case?
No.
Anybody else from the prospective panel employed in some form or fashion with victims assistance? What about anybody affiliated with any gun control advocacy groups? What about any NRA or Second Amendment affiliations? Juror 20?
I think I have a membership with National something Federation,
Okay.
firearms thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're not,
We always have firearms, yeah.
yeah, okay. But it sounds like you're not actively attending meetings or anything along those
No, I'm
lines.
just, yeah.
Yeah,
I made, I give them $20 for membership for a year or something like that,
okay.
yeah.
Anybody else? Juror number 4.
Lifetime member of NRA, Ohio Gun Rights, subscribe to them. I don't go to meetings about it.
Yeah.
I just support.
Well, so you indicated, I think it's now lapsed, but previously when you were living in Texas, you had a concealed carry license, correct?
Yes.
What did you have to do to get that license? Do you recall?
FBI.
If someone has a concealed carry license, generally, do you glean anything from that about the person's character?
Negatively or whatever.
Either way.
No, I don't think that. I think, I know spent most of my life in Texas, and Houston, a good portion of it, everybody carries a gun there.
Yeah.
It's just Houston Tracy, back in the seventies, it was even worse. But it's out there, I understand how I got there.
Yeah.
But, it was just common, so I have no argument either way.
Okay. You know,
I
you,
don't carry.
yeah.
I have the license in case, because if I travel,
Mhm.
I do take my gun with me, I go.
Okay. Excuse me just a moment. Spilling this all over myself this morning. You know, what are your thoughts about the fact that there's obviously been some new laws promulgated in Ohio over the last couple of years as it relates to carrying a firearm? What are your thoughts about the fact that you don't, to carry a firearm in this state, you don't have to go to the range necessarily, do any training, you know, so long as you meet certain criteria as it relates to your background, you can carry a firearm. Does that bother you?
I believe that you should be a responsible person, and I believe everyone should learn how to shoot a gun. I don't believe the government should tell me to do it. I believe it's my own decision. And I raised my kids with gun safety. I raised my grandchildren with gun safety. It's, you teach them rules. Everybody has rules for everything.
I'm gonna touch on this in a little bit, but I appreciate your comments, thank you. I think we've already, we've talked about individuals who have medical training or somehow involved in the medical field. Number 9, did you indicate that, well, I'm sorry, Judge, was number 9 the woman that we indicated we're going to be having an additional discussion?
No.
Okay. Did you indicate, or did I just mishear, that your sister-in-law discussed this incident with you?
That was number 3.
Number 3, my apologies.
Or a coworker, correct? Coworker.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are talking to her privately.
Okay, perfect. Yep. And anybody here have experience working in a lab setting? Or family or friends who are affiliated with the lab? Juror number 7.
I'm an analytical chemist,
Okay.
so it's a chemical lab, but
Sure.
yes, I have done that for 30 years.
So I would anticipate that during the course of this trial, you're going to hear testimony from individuals who work in a lab, who are going to be providing some testimony as it relates to forensic work that was done in this case. Does that cause you any concern? Okay. Do you feel that essentially you could do your very best to set aside all of your prior training and experience and, you know, keep an open mind and set of ears? Okay. Anybody else? Juror number 20.
I just worked for a lab many years ago,
In,
just for like a year or so.
in what capacity, if I could ask?
Specimen processing, we would intake specimens and then send them on to run results, and we'd get the results back and then send them out where we would go. So kind of like clerical and specimen processing and.
Okay. And kind of the same line of questioning that I asked juror number 7. Anything that you learned during the course of that employment, you're going to be able to set aside and keep in mind. Perfect. So I'm going to talk about just a couple of topics that the state's already discussed, but I want to discuss in a little bit more detail. Again, we're all generally aware that you know, this case involves allegations of firearm use. There's no question as to who shot whom, right? We are acknowledging that Mr. Post discharged a firearm and that Devin Quiggle was shot. And the defense here is raising self-defense, and kind of the backstory to how this all occurs is that there is some sort of road rage incident occurring in Madison Township. Juror number, let's see, who have I not called on? Well, juror number 1. Road rage, what does that mean to you?
It could mean a lot of things. It could mean that somebody's having a bad day. It could
you indicate, I don't recall, have you ever been involved? I mean, I feel generally all of us who have driven a vehicle have had some level, it's a
Sure.
spectrum, right?
Sure.
But have you ever had a memorable road rage incident?
Sure.
You know, why is it that people feel this license to be able to say all these mean things and act in a way when you're in your individual cars, and it's so different when we're one-on-one right in front of each other?
I can be the judge of that. I mean, like I just said, it could be a bad day. The person just be, you know, they could have problems at home, and that causes just to bring out the rage.
Juror number 2, why is that? Why is it that when somebody cuts me off, I'm getting all angry, and my wife's like, chill out, and then in real life, I would never be so rude to a person. Why is that?
No idea.
Yeah, I've got issues I gotta take care of.
I know some people that fly off the handle, I know some
Yeah.
people that don't. And, everybody's different and.
Do you, what conclusions do you draw about, or assumptions, I guess, do you tend to draw about people that are involved in a road rage incident?
They're in the moment, in one moment, to screw everything up.
Juror number 19. Yep, I'm picking on you. You know, have you ever experienced road rage? I don't recall from when the state was speaking with everyone.
I have personally done road rage, but I did have a friend that is, he's a very defensive driver. So I've been in a car with him a few times where I'm like, calm down.
Yeah.
But I've never had somebody do it to me.
Is that his, you know, when he's not in a vehicle, does he have that same, I guess, level of angst or intensity?
No, it's just in the car.
Okay.
I drive most of the time. Makes
Well,
it easier.
yeah, there you go, good. Why do you think it is that some people act so differently when they're in that setting than when they're just, again, face to face, you know, in a room?
It's it's because you don't have to actually interact with the other person. So if he's brake checking people, and I'm just like, dude, stop it. And he's like, well, this person will never see me again.
Juror number 32. You know, how does a conflict change in your mind when it moves from being road rage inside of a vehicle to then spilling out of the vehicle? How does it change in your mind?
Depends on how road rage person is gonna proceed with it. Whether they'll just kind of own it and let it go, whether they'll proceed to follow the person, or stop and punch on their car, yell at them, things like that.
Well, I think juror number 8, you indicated you had something like that not too long ago. Did everything become a lot more real when that person exited their vehicle? What were you feeling, you know, when that person came up to your vehicle?
Scared.
Yeah. Scared for yourself, scared for your occupants? What, I mean, if you could
I was afraid that he was gonna break the window and harm me. He was rather large and threatening and drunk.
and you thought he might actually physically assault you.
I think that if the window would have broken, yes.
Has anybody else ever been in quasi-similar situation where road rage has kind of spilled out and somebody's actually approached the vehicle? Juror number 15.
You want me to explain the incident?
Yeah, if you could.
Somebody was cutting me off as I was coming off an exit. They almost hit my car, so I honked my horn at them. We got off the exit, we were at the red light, he got out of his car, came to my car,
when he got out of the vehicle, what were you feeling, if you remember?
Oh, I was afraid.
And to be clear, did he approach your vehicle, obviously?
Yes.
You were still inside the vehicle?
Yes.
I guess kind of, again, moving past road rage into actual physical confrontations. Has anybody here ever been in a physical confrontation, in a fight in their life? A lot of people be fighting. Juror number 4.
I grew up.
Yeah.
I had 6 brothers all the time.
I have 4, yeah, I have 3 brothers, so I get that. You know, what does self-defense mean to you in real-world practical terms?
I guess self-defense, if somebody's trying to harm me, I have the right to prevent them from harming me.
You know, in your eyes, what has to happen before you're justified in defending yourself?
Somebody assaults me. You can't just let it slap to the face, but if somebody assaults you, you have the right to defend yourself. The degree how you defend yourself is a different thing altogether.
Sure. Juror number 5, did you raise your hand?
Yes.
You know, kind of just piggybacking on what juror number 4 said, you know, hypothetically, if someone started coming toward you in an aggressive manner, do you have the right to defend yourself at that point, or do you need to wait until they assault you?
It depends on the circumstance clearly, but I mean, if somebody's coming at you with force, you're gonna go back at them with equal or greater force.
Anybody else here, I forgot, who else raised their hand? Juror number 1. You know, just what I asked juror number 5. If someone's approaching you in an aggressive manner, and, you know, there's a fear that they're gonna do you harm, you know, when is an appropriate time in your mind?
The situation depends. I mean, I feel like if you're approaching me without a weapon or something like that, I might warn you and say, if you get any closer to me, we're gonna have a problem. Or just keep your distance.
And what if I keep moving towards you after you warn me?
Then I have the right to defend myself, in my eyes.
Thank you very much for your statements. Juror 8, what are your thoughts about that?
I mean, if someone was coming in there, then try to initially maybe stop them from doing that. Depends on how it would escalate, I suppose.
How would you try to stop them from doing that?
Blocking them, moving away from them, trying to handle it in a way that stops them from physically attacking.
And if you were unsuccessful, yeah, if that didn't stop them, you're.
Then I feel that you have the right to defend yourself.
Does anybody feel differently from the prospective panel? Sure.
The other thing I would add is it depends on what the law of self-defense is, because I could have my own personal beliefs that can, you know, I've been in situations and had to work with people where you can't react until you are assaulted, and that's just the line that the state drew, whether you agree with it or not.
Well, yeah, and to be fair, I'm not talking about the legal, because you're going to hear all of that from the judge as it relates to the law surrounding self-defense. I'm just talking about in real world terms, you know, that same hypothetical that I asked to a couple of the jurors. If someone is approaching you in an aggressive manner, when is it okay to act in self-defense?
Well, I think somebody mentioned over there's different levels of self-defense, so it depends on what level of self-defense we're talking, but I think I do agree that drawing a boundary, like drawing a line of, hey, if you come closer, or if you do this, or if you do that, making that known, makes a difference.
I think it's, oh, here, I gotta get back here. I'll read your land. Juror number 33. I promise, sir, I'm not picking on you, and it's not ageism, but it's a relevant question here. Sir, how old?
71.
Okay. You know, do you think that, you know, age could potentially play a role in that calculus of whether someone is permitted to act in self-defense?
Depends on if they're the aggressor or not.
What differences do you think exist between how a 20-something-year-old and a 60-something-year-old experience physical danger, if any?
The older you are, the more danger you are in. You're not physically capable of doing the same thing I was able to do at 20.
Juror number 20, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think there's, even almost 60, if there was a 20-some-year-old leader, I might feel more intimidated because I might have lived myself as well as if I was maybe the same age or, whatever.
Juror number 18, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm a small person, so definitely anybody coming at me almost seems like a threat,
But, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, so if I'm wrong, correct me. But, if a 20-something-year-old was approaching you in an aggressive manner, that would be concerning.
That would be.
Juror number 12, let me ask you a hypothetical. You get into, unfortunately, a physical confrontation with someone, and that person pins you to the ground. What is going on in your mind when you're pinned to the ground and you can't move?
Fear, difficulty in processing.
Kind of a claustrophobic feeling? Juror number 11, what are your thoughts about that?
Fear, definitely. A little disbelief, like, I can't believe that I'm in this situation, and at the same time, I'm trying to fight to get you off as best as I can. However, whatever method I can come up with at that time.
Could you imagine kind of a panicky situation?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm an extremely claustrophobic guy. I got stuck not too long ago there's a jail out in Youngstown, and the operator left me there for 30 minutes, and it was a terrible experience. And I could imagine, in my mind, that sort of panicky feeling, getting pinned down. Does anybody else feel that way? Juror number 16, you're in your head. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'd be panicked and probably not even thinking clearly. Fight or flight, mode. You're just wanting to get out of there, obviously.
Well, let me up the ante just a little bit more. In this hypothetical, you're pinned down, and you now are in a situation where the person is applying pressure and you're struggling to breathe. How does that make you feel?
Terrified.
I haven't spoken with you yet, juror number 30. What are your thoughts about that?
If someone tried to put me down in an aggressive manner, I'm shooting them. It's my favorite thing.
Juror number 29, what are your thoughts about that?
Like I was pinned down and I couldn't.
And you couldn't breathe?
I would do anything I could to get them away from me.
Has anyone, I'm sorry, juror number 29. Sure. Well,
You're fighting for your life, right?
Possibly. Yeah, absolutely. Has anybody here ever been in a situation, and I'm not trying to pry or embarrass anybody, has anybody ever been in a situation where they have been choked, suffocated, struggled to breathe? Juror number 10.
I wrestled in high school and college, so I know that feeling. But I was also trained to stay calm in those situations as well, because in those situations, if you freak out or act under emotion, that's when mistakes are made as well.
Sure. Okay, don't mean to keep deviating, but the main thing that I remember from wrestling in 4th grade is I was in a tournament and I got in a situation where I couldn't breathe and I called timeout and the ref took me to the side and said, "There aren't any timeouts in wrestling, buddy." Juror number 8, you said you've had a similar situation.
Yes, I was a victim of a crime, as I said before, and that situation happened to me when my parents had me.
You know, again, I don't ask you this to embarrass or delve into your personal life, but I guess when that was happening, what was going through your mind when you couldn't breathe?
That I was gonna die.
Anybody else back here from the prospective panel been in a similar situation where they have been suffocated, choked, unable to breathe? Juror number 23.
I mean, not choked, but I was a bit of brown noser in high school, and apparently that was enough of a reason for people to decide they didn't like me, and I was jumped by multiple people and pinned to the ground, and I really thought I was gonna die, but some of the other girls came over and saved me.
That's terrible. I'm sorry to hear that. Number 16.
Mine's not very similar, but I had an incident where I was whitewater rafting and got trapped under the raft and thought I was going to die. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't get out.
Were you panicking in
Oh, yeah,
that
I mean,
situation?
I thought I was gonna die. Yeah.
It's difficult, I would submit. You know, juror number 10 said, "Hey, I've been taught to remain calm under those situations because if you don't, something even worse is going to happen." Pretty difficult to do that in that circumstance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Juror number, picking on you, but I can't see your name, 24. When you hear the term deadly force, what does that mean to you? Okay. Juror number 21, what about you?
Same.
Same? Do you believe there are circumstances where deadly force is justified?
Yes.
Anybody here feel that there are no circumstances where it's appropriate to utilize deadly force? Juror number 34.
Due to religious beliefs, I think harming somebody or killing somebody is wrong no matter what.
So I'll tell you, I had a trial not too long ago, and I had a reverend as a prospective juror and asked that same question. And I won't indicate what he answered, but you know, I'll just ask you the follow-up that I asked him. If you were in a situation where someone was, at least in your mind, you believe trying to take your life or your life was in danger, do you still feel that it wouldn't be appropriate to act with deadly force?
I don't think I could.
Okay. Anybody hear what juror number 34 said and feel similar? Juror number 14. When does deadly force become justified, in your mind?
I would say if you have no other choice, if your life is threatened, what are you supposed to do?
How would you personally evaluate, strike that. But you feel that deadly force is a last resort?
Yeah, if I thought someone was trying to kill me, if I could kill them first, I certainly would.
hypothetically, if you were pinned to the ground, struggling to breathe, could you see a circumstance in which you might utilize deadly force? Guys, I apologize, because I know that this has already been asked, but a show of hands again, who here owns a firearm? Juror number 21. Why do you own a firearm?
For protection. I was a victim of violent crime when I was younger, and having the firearm in the house gives me a sense of security.
Juror number 23. Why do you own a firearm?
Probably the person that would try to harm me, so for me, having that on me makes it a little bit easier to know that me and my child are gonna be safe when we're out and about, or when I'm in my home.
I have a sister down in Columbus, just a block away from where you heard that Dennis was just murdered recently, and she went out and purchased her first firearm immediately after that. In the box over here, could you show of hands one more time? Juror number 6, or excuse me, 5. Why do you own a firearm?
Well, my father was in the Navy, so I was around guns from a young age. And then after that, as I grew up, I had a job where I got a lot of dangerous situations, so it just kind of became necessary for what I did for many years. And then after that, I was captain.
Do you think that I think I already know the answer, but do you think it's right that we have a constitutional right to firearms as adults in America?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a Second Amendment right. It's been in our government for basically since the beginning of the country.
Sure, but I guess that I appreciate it is a codified Second Amendment right. But I have conversations with clients all the time that your right to drive a vehicle, it's not a constitutional right, it's a privilege. Who here feels that your right to a firearm should be a privilege as opposed to a constitutional right? Anybody? Juror number 12. I kind of see you going back and forth.
I don't like it in either scenario. I would like less guns in general.
It seems like I can remember I was in middle school when Columbine happened, and that was an anomaly, and then doesn't it seem like every month there's another major shooting? I had asked previously that idea of, in Ohio, you don't have to have any prior training or experience to legally own a firearm or carry a firearm. What are your thoughts about that?
That bothers me. I think the guns are entirely too easy to purchase, and very deadly. Firearms are entirely too easy to come into. I work in a school. It's a reality every day of the risk of gun violence in school.
Juror number 6, what do you think about what juror number 12 just said?
Actually, I agree with her totally. It should be a privilege.
Juror number 7, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it should be the right. I mean, it is.
Mhm.
I think people should have to have training of some sort before you are allowed, well, can't say allowed, but before you can purchase.
Okay.
There are a lot of guns out there.
How does that make you feel, knowing that you drive around on the roads and a lot of those people driving next to you have firearms?
Kind of worries me a little bit sometimes. Because you don't know
Sure.
what could set them off.
Juror number 6, you agree?
Yes. You don't know what could set them off.
Juror number 3, what do you think about what juror number 6 and number 7 said?
I wish there was less guns out there, I agree with that.
If you were starting our country all over again today, And, well, too bad we've elected you.
Okay.
You know, are you saying that the right to have firearms, is that a constitutional right, or is that something that's a privilege that you've got to go through kind of a licensure process? Okay, why is that?
I don't think everybody should just have a gun. You should have to, like they said, go through training and all that before.
Juror number 9, what do you think about that?
I agree. I think that people, it's a privilege, it should be a privilege. They should go through training because we were talking about road rage, someone who just gets frustrated or angry could just pull a gun and it's scary.
Juror number 2, do you agree or disagree with what some of these jurors have said about privilege as opposed to a right?
It's kind of difficult. I think in my own opinion on it, it would be, I wish, it would be like a mental test before you get a gun. But at the same time, where we're at now, there's so many guns out there that people shouldn't have, in my opinion. But doesn't mean to take it away from the law-abiding citizens that have more protection.
Juror number 8, your thoughts?
I think both sides of it, really. I know a lot. I think that people should be checked out. I think there should be more restrictions with it a little bit, just because not everyone should have it. I know a lot of people with mental illness that lie. There should be more accountability for it, for sure.
And juror number 1, your thoughts, again, you're starting the country today. Is that a constitutional right, or is that a privilege that every, okay.
Like some of the other jurors said, I mean, especially in my job, what I deal with and what people I see, there's a lot of people that shouldn't be thinking about having a firearm, that they don't have the mental capacity to even own a firearm. It should be a privilege, and maybe like a background check or something for mental illness, you know, if you have some sort of mental illness, you shouldn't be able to do it.
Well, so if you've heard that someone has gone through the requisite training and has the experience and is granted a firearm license, what does that say to you, if anything, about that person?
I say that they just went through the training.
Okay.
You can go through training, and, you know, anybody can get through some sort of training like that. That's it.
Okay. Who here, from the prospective panel, has had a family member or friend or someone that they knew fairly well who's been the victim of gun violence? Juror number 24?
A friend of mine was killed on his 21st birthday. He was on his motorcycle and he was shot.
He was
In a
shot
road rage incident.
in a road rage incident. How long ago was that?
20 years.
You know, how does that affect you today, if at all?
I don't really know.
Do you remember the circumstances of that incident? Were you there?
No.
Okay. Knowing that, you know, this case at least bears some similarities, right, in broad brush strokes. You know, how do you feel about potentially being a juror in this type of a case?
I wouldn't have any sway one way or another.
The fact that you had a close personal friend who was, you know, shot after a road rage incident, that's not going to cause you to have any bias towards Mr. Post. Anybody else have any incidents or knew anybody, close personal friends who have been the victim of gun violence? One moment, Judge. Oh, it was number 9. I think we're 14. That's new juror number 9, there's something I wanted to speak with you about. So, my recollection is that you may have known somebody who was employed at this medical facility, is that correct? Okay. And how long have you known that person?
It's my sister-in-law, so we went to high school together, so.
Okay. Are you close with your sister-in-law? Okay. How often do you see her or speak with her?
I see her every week, speak with her maybe, once or twice a week. So.
And was she employed at that medical facility a year ago? Okay. So, did she ever tell you anything about this, an incident happening at work where there was, this confrontation in the parking lot?
Yes.
Okay. And did she share detail with you about this?
Not that I can remember, I don't remember the details. I just remember her talking about a shooting at work, and we were like, making sure she's okay,
Yeah. Okay. So, I think you've answered the question, but you didn't learn any information from those interactions that, was specifics as to what had taken place in the parking lot?
Not in great detail.
Okay. And so would that conversation or those conversations impact your ability to remain fair and impartial here?